Some of you are out there saying, yeah, that sounds great, but where's the proof of that? Do you have this understanding and nobody else has this? Well, yeah, you're an MD. You used to be a general surgeon, but still, all these movement experts out there that have devoted their academic career to it, you're telling me that you know, but they don't know? That's a valid question. And you should question everything I say. Everything that I'm sharing with you here on these videos, on the website, thing in the book, everything is 100% true because it's what I had to go through personally to be able to write that book, to be able to understand all that stuff. It's what I still use today, every darn day, because I still make mistakes. So you can believe everything that I've written in there and what I'm saying here. But the other part of that is don't trust any of it. Doesn't sound right, does it? I'm telling you that you can believe everything I'm saying. But on the other hand, I'm saying don't trust it. By that, I mean don't trust my feelings and my understanding of my body, the way I work, to fit exactly to you. We're all built the same. We all have the same body structure, bone structure, muscles, nerves, and all that kind of stuff. So all the natural principles apply to each and every one of us, regardless. The difference is we're different heights, different widths, different ailments, things happen throughout our life. So some things are a little bit different the way we use them, but the purpose and what we're doing, the movements, those are all the same. It's just we find our own individual ways for some things. Now, let me give you an example. You're watching basketball, and there are 10 people out there in the court, and you're watching them, and let's say 8 of them are really good, but 2 of them, they're not quite so good. And one of them, every time that person dribbles a ball and then shoots the ball, you go, how are they that good? They shoot that ball, it looks like it has no chance of making the basket, but it goes in almost every time. What's the difference? This person is doing it this way, that person is doing the same thing, but they're doing it a different way. So aren't our movements different? And this person is a pro doing that activity, and I'm just a rank amateur. So they have different movements than me. And I'm a woman, he's a man. Men, they're different than women. So we're doing different things. That person is playing tennis. That person's out there playing racquetball. That person's out there hitting rocks with a baseball bat. That person over there is shooting the hockey puck. Those are all different movements. Not so much. What's different about them? The activity. The activity that each one is doing has a different endpoint, a different purpose. But when you look at the actual movements they're doing, they're pretty much the same. In fact, many times they're identical. Joints only move the way they're designed to move. Same thing with the muscles. So overall, all of us do the same movement in the same way for the same purpose of that movement. For the basic movement of this elbow itself, it'll flex and it will extend. That's it. We do the same movements with these joints and muscles and bones in everything we do. So, whether you're a rank amateur or a pro, it's the same movements. It's just the pro and those people that are doing it really good have practiced it more. They're more efficient at it. They've learned how to relax more into the movement. Some people have gift, and some of us, we have to struggle with it. Still, the movements are all the same. Okay, let's get back to the you can believe it, but don't trust it issue. Don't trust anything that I am telling you, anything that you're reading, until you yourself prove it to you. That's when it becomes real. And that's when your use of it starts to really improve. Because now you're understanding you and not trying to understand me or somebody else's movements. The only thing you can trust about all this is your use and knowledge of it. Now, what about that question of, I know something that seemingly not too many people or nobody else knows. Okay, let's ask a simple question to anybody, movement expert or Joe Blow down the road. Ask them to explain to you, how do you walk so easily across the floor? I'm having this problem and I don't understand it, and I'm having trouble doing it. So while you're doing it, can you explain to me what you're actually doing, what you're actually experiencing? Don't be surprised when nobody or very few people can give you an intelligible answer of something that means something, something that tells you exactly what it is they're doing. When you ask those questions, and even to yourself, when you ask those questions and get those questioning looks, and I don't know, I've never thought about that. I don't really know what it is I'm experiencing. It just works. It just happens. Then you'll understand what I'm talking about a little bit more. Everything I'm giving you is real, truthful. Everything is on a practical application, or how do I use it? How do you use it? This is what it's all about. These are the mechanics with it. These are the feelings that go with it. The actual feelings. The good, the not so good. How do I go back and forth between the two? Nothing is theoretical. There's no guesswork with any of the stuff I'm giving you. It's my understanding of it. I've come to understand what our natural movement ability actually is, or where it comes from, how we actually put it together. And with that, I've been able to understand my unnatural movements. I've been able to put together what the mistakes are that I'm actually making that takes me further away from the natural side. I found that there are so many mistakes that we make over here that are correctable mistakes. Remember we talked about direct effects and indirect effects? Well, these unnatural movements, what's behind that? The indirect effects, the mistakes we're making, the postural mistakes we're making. I've learned how to recognize my mistake and correct a bunch of my mistakes to make my life a little bit easier, to give me better movements, to make them a little bit more natural, or make them a lot more natural. It depends. How much natural can you get back? I don't know. That's an individual basis. Some can get a lot of it back. Some can only get a little bit of it back. Remember that direct effects box? If that's big, you're not going to get a lot back. But if this indirect box is also big, you need to start shrinking that, and then you will start having better movements. For everybody, you're going to come somewhere. If this is a 0 to 100%, unnatural over here, natural over here, how far you're going to come on the percent scale it's going to vary, and it's going to vary throughout your life. It'll vary with what you're doing, what you're not doing. And at first it seems like you go a little bit, then you go back. You come a little bit, you come back. I went through the same thing, but there's a big learning curve there. And once you keep pushing through, then you're not having to work so hard. You're not having to think so much about it. Things are starting to progress. And this progress starts to become more and more positive. Many of you right now have a lot of questions, and that's okay. Many of you are doubting what I'm saying is possible for you. Well, how will you know what is and what is not for you until you get off your butt and try some of this stuff? It's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. It's nothing that you can read or just hear and watch and say, oh, okay, I can use that now. I understand it. No, you don't. You have to gain this intellectual understanding of all this material. But then you have to regain, redefine, remake this practical use, this practical understanding of what it is I'm actually doing. Because all of our movement, from the time we were that little tot in diapers, all of our movement has been on what? What has determined it? What has told us this is right, this is wrong? How do we know this is what we can do? It's all according to a feeling. It's all according to what you feel. Where does that feeling come from? Woohoo! You're going to say, oh, it comes from my brain. Well, okay, let me see. How many of you walk on your head? You're going to say, I don't walk on my head. Well, okay. What do you walk on? You walk on your feet. All the information you want to know about your movements, all through your normal moving life, that's what you've trusted. You learned how to trust those feet back when you were a baby. And that's what you've continued to trust all through your life, but you've had no concept of what it is that you were trusting. Everybody thinks, well, it's this thing up here. Well, no, that's just the big computer center that keeps everything working in a way that it's supposed to, coordinating things. There's so much that goes on up there. But from a basic movement standpoint, when everything is working right down here, your body is cooperating, relaxed, and all that stuff, everything down here is on autopilot. We're going to get into reflexive movement. That's natural movement. That's the easy movement. When our body is cooperating with itself and just doing what it knows how to do, when your posture is set to set everything correctly, and boy, are we going to get into that big time later on. When everything is set up correctly, the movements just happen and continue to happen until you change something to where they can't happen or they don't happen as well. Unnatural movements start to happen. So everything that you do, everything that you're going to be learning is what's happening down there in your feet. Because your feet are responsible for your movement, stability, the control, everything you want to think about. It's in your feet, not your brain. The questions that you have about what your movements actually are, the answers are not in your head. You never had to learn them. So when you are asking these questions, when you're trying to come up with some kind of reasoning to what's going on and why this and that's happening, stop looking in your head. Stop trying to think of what the answer is. It's not there. For most all of this, it's not there. You have to put it there. There's a lot of intellectual learning that you have to do. You have to gain an intellectual understanding of what your practical movements actually are. And that you've never learned before. Just like I didn't know it, I had to learn it. But once you learn it, once you have that intellectual understanding, then things start to make some sense when you start then to process that and use it in your body and feet. And when you can put both things together and they work together, that's when things start to click. That's when you have a good understanding of both natural movement and unnatural movement, mistakes, how to correct the mistakes, how to make the mistakes smaller mistakes, how to make your movements better. That's when your life starts to get better. That's when everything starts to get better. Quality of life, everything. All because you learned what your movements actually are.